Hey, hello.
Fork it over. You fork it over. Oh, he's a little cutie.
Welcome tonight to our presentations. We're gonna get going here in like a minute. Um, so yeah, we'll have one more night tomorrow night, and there's refreshments over here. There'll be a short break in between presentations. So feel free to grab a snack, use the restroom. Um, we're gonna try and stay on time as much as we can. So welcome.
All right, folks. Hey, welcome to Senior Presentation Nights. As Jake just said, my name's Dakota Palmer. If you didn't know that, now you do. I have the great privilege of introducing one of my favorite seniors, Alyssa Hoff. I have this big speech. I can't look at her right now, or else whatever. But
I'll scoot back.
one of the best things that I like about Alyssa Hoff, and something that you can see clearly in front of me, is she is what we call at Minnesota New Country School a creative maker. Uh, just look at everything that's here. This is all stuff that she made throughout the years of her experience here. And that is a huge attribute of Minnesota New Country School. And literally, when I was designing the rubric, we were supposed to think of like animals. I thought of Alyssa Hoff. That's basically my relationship with her. Not only that, but she has trusted me not only as her advisor for the last 2 years, but with all three of my trips, which I have no idea why she would do that, but she trusted me all three times, which is a big deal for me again. Um, she's great, very talented. She's been ready to leave this place since I met her, and I'm excited to be a small part of her success. So, Alyssa Hoff.
Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my presentation. Leading you guys through my creative portfolio that I spent the last 350 hours on. Starting off, if you want to know where this project began, you have to figure out where it all began. From a young age, I was shoving crayons in the hot glue gun, getting in trouble for leaving my arts and crafts everywhere, painting the carpet in the house, all the things, all the creative things. And that really carried through my entire life. I've always been incredibly creative. Whether I was getting in trouble for it or not, it didn't stop me. I've always been creating. And up here, you can see I've got some pictures from when I was young that I made. This one was one of me and my grandma Michelle wearing our tutus. And then a little cubist self portrait. Oh, yeah. And then I got Tigger and Eeyore that I made for my mom and a fabulous little Alyssa ready to graduate kindergarten. A little bit about me. I'm 17 years old. I'm a senior MNCS this year. I enjoy all things artsy, if you could not tell. I love getting out into nature, and I'm an activities assistant over in Le Sueur. It is the most amazing job I've ever had. It's super fulfilling, and I'm beyond grateful to have the opportunity to work there. So, a little bit about my education. I started my career here at MNCS in February of my freshman year. I started off with Jennifer Brunick as well. I was going through a lot. I was really struggling with the job that I was working. I was working full time as a custodian, and I was not loving it. It was taking a toll on my mental health, my physical health, and by the time this experience week rolled around in Maine, I was so burnt out from work that I just wanted to switch schools because I wanted to keep my job. I was in a really rough spot contemplating what I wanted to do school wise. And this trip in Maine, I was able to kind of take my mind off of all the stuff I was worried about with school and work. And I was able to have really good conversations with people who are also project based learners. And I was able to have really good conversations with my advisor. And I'm so grateful for that because if I didn't have that trip and I didn't have all those conversations, I don't think I would be presenting here. I think I would be at a different school. So I'm very thankful for that experience week. Another experience week that was incredibly important to me was my trip up to the Boundary Waters with Anthony and Nancy. This trip meant a lot to me because crafts first. I wanted to get all my crafting and stuff out of the way, but I didn't do that. I dragged it all the way through my project, and I'm glad I did that because if I would have just done all my crafting first, I don't think I would have enjoyed the rest of my project. But I also worked on my senior paper, and then I did my community piece working up at the elementary, and that with my community expert not once, but twice. And now, here's where I am. Got my little portfolio, and there's my car. I'm driving away. So, here are my paintings. So, these 3 final paintings were based off of the 3 experience weeks that I went on with MNCS that meant the most to me. So the Boundary Water Canoe Area trip that I had in the fall of 2023, the Seattle trip in the spring of 2024, and then the main trip in fall of 2025. All 3 of these trips, they meant a lot to me. Seattle was a whirlwind. I got hospitalized on that one. Girl got Seattle strep. That was fantastic. That trip taught me a lot about perseverance. That was actually my first time on a plane out of state. That was my first time far away from my family like that, and I got very, very ill. It taught me that a lot of things are out of my control, and I just got to go with what I can. But all these trips were really important to me. So my way of giving back to the school was painting these, and I'm actually selling them to the advisors that took me on these trips, which I'm very happy about. Some of the struggles that I had with this was water. Painting water sucks. Water is ridiculously hard to paint, and I redid the water on this main painting I've got right here. I redid it 4 or 5 times. This is the happiest I've been with it. I think if I wanted to make it more realistic, it would have taken me like 15 more tries. But I'm very happy with how it turned out. Moral of the story, water's evil. It's hard to paint. Pro tip, don't paint water. And then something that I had a really good success with this project was for Christmas, I got some Posca pens, and you can kind of tell in this painting here. I used it for the line work around my rocks. I made it so you could kind of just see the difference between them, add a little more depth. So those Posca pens came in saving my life. Also on the Seattle one, they came in clutch because Public Market Center, the painting for the lettering for that, really hard to do with a paintbrush. So those Posca markers were absolutely a lifesaver. Another thing that was rough for me was doing the bricks on the Seattle painting. They were really tedious. As proud of them as I am, I don't think I'm going to paint bricks like that again. I learned my lesson. Another thing I'm so glad I learned from this project is about perspective. Drawing my sketching out the public market center, I had a hard time getting the perspective down on that with the buildings from each side. And I sketched it out 2 or 3 times. I wasn't happy with it. And then on this sketch, I was happy with it and I was able to paint it. But I'm really glad that I did resketch it all those times because if I wouldn't have, I wouldn't be so content with my overall painting. Alrighty, here are my crochet pieces. I've got 2 of them up here. So I have a granny stitch shawl. That one, I had a really fun time making. That was my first crochet wearable. I worked really hard on that one. I learned pretty quickly after I'd gotten about 10 rows in how important actually counting your stitches is because I realized I missed a stitch in the 3rd row. I had to frog the whole thing. And if you're not familiar with frogging, you're wrapping all your yarn back up. Not a good time. So I learned how important counting your stitches is, and I realized how much frogging sucks. And another thing that I learned was about tying in ends because if I want to make crochet pieces that I can sell to people, I can't have the ends unweaving on them. That would be very not cool, very not professional. So I learned how to tie my ends in very nice and tight and keep them secure, and also stitching my ends back in. And then I worked on my baby blanket, and then I've got a rainbow granny stitch cardigan up here, which I also have right up there. So my community piece was working up at the elementary school with Lori. I had the opportunity to do 2 lesson plans with the wombats, and I did one with the loons, I think. Um, the first one that I did was cubism, self-portraits. So I taught the kids what cubism was. I taught them like how to draw the basics of a self-portrait, and then they all made their own with the colors that they liked and all that. And then when I went and I worked with the wombats, the first lesson plan I did was 1 point perspective. I taught them how to draw from a 1 point perspective. And we started off with a cityscape. We did trees on one side, buildings on the other, a road in the middle, just so they could get a feel for it. And then after that, the next day that I worked with them, we did their dream bedroom. And the kids had a really good time with that. And I loved watching them just get creative. I had a great time. And then the second lesson plan I did with them, with the wombats, was graffiti name tags, as you can see right here. One of our kiddos, she actually incorporated the 1 point perspective into her graffiti name tag, which I thought was really cool. I was happy to see that the lesson that I had taught inspired something for one of these kids. I had a really good time teaching up there with Lori. She's an incredible teacher, and I am so thankful that I had the opportunity to work with her kids. I had a great time. My community expert. Emily Dietz is my community expert. She is a graphic design artist, and she was a huge part of this project for me. She took my senior photos, and she was kind enough to help me find a place to start with my portfolio and help me touch it up. When I started with my portfolio, I didn't know where to start actually. Emily helped me figure out what websites were a good start. And once I got my website done, she helped me touch it up and make it look professional. I'm so glad that I had a professional eye to look over my portfolio, and I'm beyond thankful to have her be a part of this project. This is a piece of her work up here from her portfolio, and a picture of Emily. Alrighty. I'm going to invite you to scan my QR code and check out the final portfolio with me. If you don't want to scan my QR code, no worries. It'll be right here. This is my portfolio. I spent about 45 hours on this. This is my pride and joy, my baby. This is my producible. So starting off, we have the homepage. This has all the quick, easy links. So my paintings, because I'm the most passionate about those, that was the biggest part of my project for me, and that's what I'm the most proud of. So I want that right there on my portfolio for everyone to see. And then I have an about me, because if people want to buy my art, they might want to get to know a little bit about who they're buying from, you know? So they can get to learn a little bit about me. And then I have a contact form for commissions or any questions on my paintings. I don't have the prices for paintings on there because some of the paintings are already sold or being sold to people. So that's why I have my commission form so people can contact me about paintings that they're interested in. Alrighty. So over here we've got my paintings. I've got my own little gallery. Has all my paintings here, all labeled. And if you click on them, you can make them bigger and full screen so you can really see them, which I didn't know how to do at first. I'm so glad that I had Emily's help. She made me touch this, like she had me touch this up, and it is a million times better than it was before. I'm so grateful to have her help. And then my crochet projects that I worked on, I have up here, all labeled and everything. And then one of the last pages I have is jewelry, since that was something that I worked on throughout this project. Got my earrings, and I have a necklace and earring set at the bottom. And then my About Me page, so people can get to know me. A few things about my portfolio. It was a new website I had never tried, so it was a little rough at first trying to figure out like the mechanics of it, how to use it. But this is a little embarrassing, everybody, bear with me. I got all the way to the end of making my website, and I finally figured out how the ruler on the website worked. Yeah, fantastic. Once I found the ruler, I was able to line everything up. I was able to go back through and touch everything up and make it look even better. But I wish I would have known about that ruler a little bit sooner. Another thing was evening out the text and the pictures, that's something I didn't really have an eye for before I did this. I kind of had things on there a little wonky. Things weren't looking right. They were uncentered, uneven. But going back through, once I got that ruler, I was able to even everything out, make it look fantastic and fabulous. And then one more thing was making all the text the same size and the same font on my portfolio. There's a lot of things that go into a portfolio and a website that you don't think about to make it look cohesive, like the design, the color choices, the fonts that you're using, a lot of things. There's a lot that goes into it that I didn't even register before I had began this project. I went into making this portfolio completely blind, and coming out of my portfolio after having it finished, I'm going into graphic design. And that leads to my college plans. I'll be attending South Central for the summer semester and onwards from there for graphic communications. And after that, I hope to be a graphic design artist. One of the things that my project did for me, it opened up that window. Before I had decided I wanted to do graphic design, I actually planned on going into nursing. That was something that I was really passionate about, that I wanted to do. But for anyone who knows me personally, I've had some health issues this past year I've been learning how to work with everything, you know? So that's something that realistically I'm not going to be able to do as much as I want to. So I'm looking into things that are fitting for me, that are going to be good for my health, and something that I'm genuinely going to enjoy. And graphic design checks all those boxes for me. I wanted to give everyone a thank you. Dakota, especially for being my advisor these past 2 years. Last year was a really rough year for me. School wise, I put way too much on my plate, and I don't think I would have I don't think I would have been able to take it off and make things able to work for myself without Dakota's help. He really taught me how to advocate for myself and how to stand up for myself when I need to. And he taught me that being a people pleaser maybe isn't always the best way to go. And it's okay to say no to people if it's something that I'm not interested in or something that's not serving me. I wanted to thank Emily for taking my pictures, my senior pictures. They are absolutely gorgeous. And I wanted to thank her for all the work on my portfolio as well. Without her, I don't think I'd be going into the career I'm going into. And I'm so happy that I had made that choice. I wanted to thank Lori for letting me teach in her classroom and take over with a little chaos for a few days. I also wanted to thank senior team for supporting me and making my schedule so flexible this year, because without having a flexible schedule, I would have had a lot rougher of a year. I wanted to thank Jess for letting me come into her classroom and read to her kiddos. I loved working with the bees. They're incredible. These kids, I read them books. Let me tell you this. I was reading them books, and all three books that I read to them the moral of the story happened to be about bullying. And one of her kids pointed that out. And she's with the first and second graders. So that was really incredible to me. I thought that it was really cool that one of the kids recognized that at such a young age. And I'm so happy to see how well she does as a teacher. And I'm so glad that the kids are in such good hands. I wanted to thank my parents for bringing me up and supporting me through my high school career and through everything before that. I seriously wouldn't be here without you guys. And I also wanted to thank my whole friend group. I wanted to thank Ani, Ava, Max, and Lilybell for answering any questions I had about my senior year, for calming me down when I was stressed about my senior year, and for just supporting me in my artwork this whole way. I also wanted to thank Nurse Jen for being part of my support system this year because I really needed it. Any questions? Also, I've got the QR code so you can take a peek at my portfolio. And I also want to invite you guys to take a walk through my gallery. Evelyn? Some are more abstract. Oh, that's a hard one. I really, really enjoy doing realism, but I like doing abstract a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Because I can kind of just go with the flow. Zayn? My favorite color to paint? Pink. Pink, pink, pink. I've not. I got in trouble for melting it into the carpet. Mhm. Yep. I think there should be more education on what AI is using, the resources it's using, and being more open about what's genuinely going on with it, the water consumption, the energy consumption, all that stuff. Because a lot of that, it's really hard to look into and find, like, especially working on my research paper, I couldn't find a lot of legitimate numbers. So, being more, I think more transparency would help a lot. Yeah, I think that would be amazing. I think it would be really good for the school to educate students on how to properly use AI, when it is and isn't appropriate, and what it really does in general. Because I think it's nice to be educated, but I think also everyone should educate themselves and make their own opinion. Coco? Yes, and I'm so glad you asked that. I wanted to try glass blowing, and I reached out to a lady, and it didn't work because she was too busy. But I really wanted to learn how to glass blow, so I'm sad I couldn't do that. Dakota? Yup. Where is next for me? I don't know. In what way? Oh, visiting. I want to go to Italy. That would be so cool. That's my dream place. Catch me in Italy next fall. In my jewelry making, I use a lot of silver and gold wire, and I use some, like, I've got a lot of them up here, but I've got some little rocks and gems that I use, some little beads. They're just little rocks that I got off Amazon that have, like, holes drilled in them for beads and necklaces and all that stuff. Some of them my wire was too big for, though. So that was a whole to do. Yep. Yes. Right. You gotta open your eyes. There's so much you get out of an experience week. And let me tell you, I went to Atlanta last spring and I didn't like the Atlanta trip. I did not enjoy the Atlanta trip. It was a rough trip, but I'm so glad I went on that trip because I got to learn, one, I don't like the city like that. Two, I'm never going to sleep in an aquarium again. And three, I mean, there was a lot there. Like, I don't know. I took a lot away from that trip. Even though it wasn't a trip that I enjoyed, I took a lot away from it. So even if it's not a trip that you think you're gonna enjoy, you can still get a lot of experience out of it, whether it's something that you're interested in or not. I have. I've thought about that. Last time I had thought about it, I was probably 12 and I talked to my mom about it. But I was thinking about it my junior year too, but I don't know. I'm thinking about it more and more as I continue to grow in my artwork.
Ask a follow-up question about the trips. Is there any one you've ever been on that felt like really shifted your whole perspective on something?
Yeah, that main trip, I was genuinely thinking about switching to the alternative school um at Hilltop because I was going through a lot of health issues. I got diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia this past year, and it's something that I've been dealing with for the past 5 years. But getting that diagnosis, it was a lot for me, really. And then another thing was the job I was working. I was working a full-time job all summer, and I burnt myself out so bad that, like, that's why I wanted to switch schools, because I wanted to be able to keep working. I didn't want to do my schoolwork. I just wanted to keep working. And I'm glad I got to go on that trip because I realized why my schoolwork is important and why the school is important to me. If I wouldn't have been able to go on that trip, I don't think I would have, I genuinely would not be here. But I don't know. It really changed my perspective in a lot of ways, not just like on school, but on life as a whole. Oh, yes, I'm still going to paint for fun. In fact, I want to paint for all of you. If you want a painting, you got my QR code. I'll paint for you. I swear. Name it, I'll paint it. Got any more questions? Thank you.
Yeah, take a couple minute break here. We're gonna do a quick transition, and our next presentation will be in probably about 3-4 minutes.
So before everybody walks away, I just want to make a quick announcement. If you were using the restroom and you dropped a fair amount of money, I'm not going to tell you how much because you'll all say, it was mine, Anthony. If you were and you like reach in your pockets and if you had lost some, come and find me. It was in one of the stalls of the restroom just a little bit ago. So come and find me if it is you. And don't guess at the amount because I will know.
And just a heads up, we are streaming this now. So if you want to rewatch this presentation, it's on our Facebook. There's a link to YouTube. So if you have friends that couldn't make it just now, it should all start to show up just now. So um, check that out when you get home. Send it to your friends who weren't able to make it. get going in about 30 seconds, so please settle back in.
That felt pretty natural in my opinion. So yeah, okay, thank you. I introduced myself last time, so I'm not going to do it again because I don't want to do it the next time. That's a lot of me yapping, and that's not why you're here. But this is Logan. I've been his advisor for only this year, but I've known him for a little bit. I've been here for 3 years, and he was a part of the Atlanta trip that you just heard of. That was terrible. I'm going to be honest; it was terrible. But we survived. That's the important part. And I've been his advisor this year, and I helped him finish his junior project last year, and it's been really great just to work with him. We finished a lot of math topics, a lot of math classes. He's officially done with all of his math, which is pretty impressive considering everything that. Yeah. And one of the things that he does really well is definitely time logs. So don't get me started. Yeah. But despite it all, in all seriousness, I'm really glad that, this situation worked out where he was in my advisory. I've really enjoyed getting to work with him. He's a fine young man. He's going to do great stuff in this world. Um, it's been a lot of help to see him teach other kids what he wishes that he knew as a seventh grader, as an eighth grader, and so on. He's one of the 5 kids that were here since kindergarten. And fun facts. No. And yeah, that's so without further ado, I'd like to introduce the distributor, but also known as Cool Guy Logan.
Hello. Okay, there we go. Hi, you know, I'm Logan. You already heard that though. Let's get straight into my project. Um, so this is what I'm going to be covering in my project today, and that's my cat Sasha. What is my project and why did I do it? Um, so I feel pretty helpless. Like genuinely, I am not very good at cooking. I can clean, I guess. Um, you know, I turned 18 at the beginning of this year, so that's pretty scary. Getting old, ancient even. Um, and yeah, some of the goals and ideas I originally had for my project: be a responsible adult. I don't want to be living in my grandma's basement. You know, I want to get a job. I want to be able to pay for my own things. Um, I like being able to make things. Being able to make things is cool. Being creative. This is having furniture is also nice. I don't want to have the stereotypical guy room of like a lawn chair and some cinder blocks. Um, and also learning to cook. Y- I can't live on ramen forever. So um, this is the table I made. Um, some of the stuff. Um, that's the design I drew. It's pretty accurate. Um, some of the steps I had to do to make the table. For one, I had to clean out my grandpa's shop so I could actually get to everything. That was probably one of the bigger parts of making this. Um, but after that, I had to get all the wood cut into the size I need, and then I tried to model out like the frame there, and I just kind of copied that, and then I put it together in that picture. When we're done with this presentation, you guys can come up here and look for and get a better look. Oh, some of the new things I did. Um, I haven't really used a table saw before. I used a table saw for this. It was a lot easier than using like one of those hand saws, much more even cuts. It was a lot easier, more even. Didn't have to go back as much. Um, I feel pretty good about the table. Like this is the biggest thing I made of this size, or biggest thing I made actually overall, like so far. So I feel really good about it. I think it looks good. I still want to stain it, but otherwise I'm pretty much done with it. Some of the other things I did um, for my adult stuff, finances, yucky. Money management, no. Um, so I learned how to do taxes, even though I don't have to do them yet because I don't have a job or I've never had a traditional job. Learning to cook. I wanted to make a little cookbook that I could have for when I move out. So there's some nice little recipes that are pretty easy to make and good. I worked on cars a little bit too, so that's good. Mainly the basic stuff though, like changing tires, um, and bleeding the brake lines. That's mainly what I did. Um, and I've been working on some house habits, just like just being tidier in general, cleaning up, being mindful of my surroundings. Um, I did a little internship with John. He's the seventh grade teacher. He's only been here for like 2 or 3 months, so I was helping him with his students. I was also helping John get used to the system, and also socializing with the seventh graders. They're stuck in the what used to be the science room, so they don't get out very much, and they're crazy in there mostly. Um, yeah, they need to socialize. Um, John also gave me that laptop, and I got to take it apart and figure out what was wrong with it. So that was really cool. John is also making a kind of a makerspace, like printing lab in there, and that's also really cool. I got to talk with him about computers a lot, um, so I really enjoyed that. Um, I wrote my research paper on, or I read these 3 books, and my thesis is that these books, things have come true from these books. So, like for Brave New World, right? They basically humanity is distracted by comfort. People are less likely to ask inconvenient questions if they're comfortable. So that's kind of how like I connect that with social media in my head. Like, you know, everything just gets kind of swept away, like every serious thing. Um, so it's a lot more happy stuff, and they do that in Brave New World. For Animal Farm, I mean, it's the Soviet Union, communism. The main takeaway I got from that was all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. That's like a quote that sticks in my head from that book, and I kind of see that in America with like the classes of people. You know how like rich people can just get away with more things. Um, and then we have 1984. So um, in 1984, there's this thing called like the thought police and thought crime. So basically, they'll get you before you even like do anything. Like even if you think about it. Um, they kind of do that in China with like the social system, like the social credit system, or did that. Um, and that's my connection with that for my paper. Some of the struggles and successes for my project were time logs. Yeah, I know Dakota already brought them up, but I really suck at time logs. I have never been good at them. I've been trying this year, and I think I've improved. I'll ask Dakota. I could be wrong, but another thing that I also am really bad at, time management. If I think I can get something done the next day and I don't need it done the day before, I'll do that. Not a very good strategy, but it makes me work the most. So it's like you trade it off. But because of that, you also trade off mental health. There have been so many times with this project that I've just wanted to give up, just stop doing it. And I honestly would have if I had a different advisor than Dakota. Um, he's helped me so much with this project, and it means so much that I'm able to be up here and present it. Okay. Some of the stuff that went well with my project was working with the seventh graders. You know, I liked it in there. It was a little crazy sometimes. Most of them were okay. Um, I got better at woodworking. That's also another major takeaway from this. I challenged myself with a goal, and I think I succeeded. And I've worked on my money skills, so I'm not spending money willy nilly unless I have money to spend willy nilly. Um, and I know it's not up here, but another thing I would say is a success is just sticking with the project and doing it. There, it was just so hard at times, and I'm proud of myself for sticking with it. What's left of my project? I originally wanted to make a couch along with the table and a coffee table, but things came up and it just wasn't in the cards. So I still want to do the couch and the coffee table. It just won't be. It'll just be done later. And I also need to finish my cookbook. I need to get the rest of my recipes, and then I need to like make the physical cookbook. Um, for my future plans, I for sure want to get working right away out of school, and I am not sure if I want to go to college, but if I am, I'm going to go to MSU Mankato. I think I'm going to take a gap year and just kind of explore my options and figure out what I'm going to do. Um, I'm the thinker, so my this roller coaster or this project has been a roller coaster like this whole year, and it's been mostly like going up, and I'm glad. Like it's been hard, but I'm at the end. It's just a pretty much wrong analogy. It's not downhill from here. Well, it kind of is. I'm getting out of school, so take that as you will. Um, anyway, this has been my favorite year here so far, and it sucks that I'm finally enjoying it when I have to go. Um, I'm proud of this project. It's obviously my biggest one yet because it's my senior capstone. But I'm glad that I'm able to be up here again. Just, it's a weight off my shoulders that I'm able to present it, and I'm this much closer to walking for graduation, and that has been a worry I've had all year. I've thought for years that I wouldn't be up here, at least not on time, and it means a lot that I'm up here. Okay. Oh man. Okay. Again, Dakota Fulmer has been such a big help this year. I'm glad I had him as my advisor. I put him down as my second option. Um, I'm glad I got him. You know, he helped so much. He is actually the credit maxing advisor. You should go to him if you're behind or you just want to graduate early. I'm plugging Dakota. Um, um, Indigo's been a big help. They took my senior pictures, and they've just been a very great emotional um, connection. Like they helped a lot. Like they talked so much sense into me too. Like because when I'd feel like I have to quit or I can't do it, they tell they tell me to keep going, and it's stupid to drop out. So that helped a lot. And my friends, you know, very helpful too. And Ryan, I guess. Yeah. They've also been help in just like helping me like kind of not necessarily forget about school, but like take my mind off it for the moment. Been very helpful for that. My mom and dad, bottom pictures. They they don't really know how the school works, but they've been trying their best, so I have to thank them for that. You know. Um, oh man. Now we got John. John's really cool. I wish I got to talk to him more. You know, he's only been here for like 2, 3 months, but I honestly think they should take him out of that room. Just free John. Yeah, Colton gets it. And then we have Paul and Jim. They have been advised. They've been. I've never had them as my advisor, but they've been great secondary advisors. Like I've always had one of them in my community, and I feel so comfortable and it just so I feel so easy to talk to them. They're they've been great help. Um, so helpful to me in my 6 year journey at the high school, especially during COVID. Like Paul was very helpful transitioning into the high school. And then we have Nicole. I I would not be up here if I didn't have Nicole as a teacher. She built my foundation for this school. It helped me so much. It's a shame that she was only my advisor for 5 out of the 6 years, but I think I ended up pretty good in Dakota's hands. Okay, questions? Zayn? Aside from the couch and coffee table, um, I'm thinking about a chair. Dakota. Um, I honestly don't know. Like, I haven't really thought about that. Like, so, Paula. Um, you know, yeah, I just don't know how well I'm cut out for that. Like, I'd consider it for sure, but I don't know if I'd like actually be able to pass the math test because I barely did I barely did my math for high school, so I don't know if I'd be able to help other people with it. Like I'm struggling helping the 7th graders with their like pre-algebra, so Evelyn. Um, I will hold on. I made there's a recipe for a very like banana bread, like chocolate chip banana bread. Uh, I need to add more like actual food. It's like it's a lot more sweet treats than like that's true. Like I mean that's more baking, but in the way um I actually like haven't thought about anything. I've just really thought about like getting money and being able to have fun, you know. I haven't thought about like what I actually want to do. Aaron. Yeah, oh, hold on. I didn't explain this. So this is my friend Ryan Perolio's dad. It's a very edited picture, and honestly, you know, I could I could get more pictures edited. Okay. Yeah, Dakota. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I mean, honestly, I think people should have houses. I don't think people should be homeless. So I think that's like a baseline of comfort that people should have. They shouldn't have to worry about meals, housing, you know, like I think that everything would be more productive if it was like that, you know? Paul, you know, Lath is ever evolving, you know? It will come in handy whenever I need it. I don't know if other people would be able to understand it. It's so complex. It's, Coco. Like for my project or just okay. Being able to present this, that's been my biggest struggle. I've been behind so far, like almost my entire time here. And it means so much to be able to be up here on time, present my project. It was such a struggle to be able to get up to this point. And I honestly didn't know if it would be possible. That's also part of the reason why I wanted to give up so much. But being up here just makes it so much better. Yeah. Evelyn. Um, I not you, Ryan. Um, I really like those books, and I wanted to explore more. I like their commenting on like the social political like things, and I decided to be like, hey, this is kind of going on right now. I think it'd be cool if I looked into this. And then, um, let's see. I'm trying to think of like something cool. um, you know, um, I like quesadillas a lot. They're like nice, easy, simple. Um, but also eggs. Eggs are also nice, easy, simple. I like my favorite egg is omelets, so I like omelets a lot. Yeah, and you can add anything to them too. So Evelyn, um, I would try to work on it consistently, doing it in gigantic bursts of time. Not very good for me. It made it so much more stressful. I just, yeah, that's my biggest like struggle with this project, honestly. Right. Right.
Yeah, we'll get going in a few minutes here again. Just a reminder, we are live streaming. You can find the link in our Facebook page. It'll bring you to our YouTube. And last night's presentations, tonight's presentations, tomorrow's, will all be there. So if you have somebody who's missing tonight or missed last night and you want to check them out, please do that. And again, we'll just get going here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, make sure it's on. Go on, test it real quick before I start yapping.
Test. There we go. Oh, you got a whole thing there. No, no, no. We don't have that time.
Time in the world, captive audience moment.
I don't.
Too bad. Haven't signed the diploma yet.
Oh, shoot. Yep, take all the time you need.
I've been told you can kick the engine, by the way, just by the way, if you wanted to. Hey, folks, this is Brody. He has been a student here for 4 or 5.
I came 7th grade, so
7th grade, so why
whatever that equals.
yeah, more time than I've been here, so that's pretty impressive already. I've had the honor of working with Brody the same amount of time I've had the honor of working with Logan, also this year, but also as a member of junior team. I'm on junior team. Shout out junior team. But
Sure.
Brody this year has shown so much resiliency on just getting to that, this stage as we heard the last presentation, as well as graduation. He started this year really behind on credit. And here he is, where he needs just this project to graduate. Once he finalizes this project, he is done. That's it. That's all he wrote. And that is a impressive milestone because it was 20 credits or more of credit that he needed. So kudos to you. One thing that I really appreciate about Brody, besides his hard work and his mentality, is just he will be able to do something if you ask him. Like every single time we had cleaning or anything like that, I would just go up to Brody. Didn't matter what it was, he would just do it. Mostly that's because I could threaten him with credit, but he's still a very hardworking young man, and I'm very excited to see what he does in this real world. So, without further ado, Brody.
Have you all ever thought, I want to go fast? Like Ricky Bobby said. I did. So I made this project. My project was making an off-road go-kart called a cross kart. So this is a project on that. Making this project. This project, like I said, is about making this off-road go-kart you see somewhat here. Um, I bought this from a person called Homemade Madness as their business, and this process will involve welding, fabrication, mechanical work, and a lot of research. Now, why this project? First off, why not? Second off, whilst I was scrolling YouTube one day, I saw a video of a person who made this, and I thought that it looked really cool to make and really cool to have, so I decided I wanted a go-kart. I also love welding and working with my hands, so this was a big passion for me. As much trouble as it was, I really enjoyed it. And then there was the career aspect, as after graduating, I plan to go into something involving this. So, so I bought the plans, like I said, from Homemade Madness, and then this involved welding, tube bending, and the tube bending die. So on the tube bender, this was a hassle to get because first off, I accidentally bought a metal bender instead of a tube bender, which does not bend it right, is for bending solid metal and not tubes, and would crush the tube and break it. So that would not be very structurally sound and would probably break while driving. Then I bought another tube bender and I went with the cheapest one because I'm broke. And and things did not line up on it. I don't know why, but the pins didn't fit in the right spots and it would not work. So we got that sorted out after getting the refund on that. And then I decided to stop going cheap and buy a nice tube bender from a company that specifically makes stuff for fabrication. This tube bender I bought worked wonderfully throughout the project, and I should have gotten it from the start. The go-kart. So for the frame, which you see here, the first step was cutting the tubes to size, which I'd cut a few millimeters over what it needed to be in order to take into account the size of the blade that I was cutting with and just any mistakes I make. I would use these paper templates that the plans I bought had. You would tape them around the end of the tube, and then you could just cut out the notch you needed with an angle grinder so it fit around other tubes, and you could have a flush weld so that it's a lot more stable. Then there was bending, which you see in a lot of parts on this, so that you don't have a real jagged thing. And for this, you make the bigger pieces first so that if you made a mistake, you could cut out smaller pieces from that big piece and you didn't ruin like 20 feet of metal. And then I would put them in place and either hold them myself or clamp them down, or if need be, have my brother come out and hold them. Thank you for that. And then I'd weld them in place, which I know my welds were not great at the start. They're still not great, but they're a lot better than they were to begin with. Some of them were very bad. So improved a lot during that. And then lighting myself on fire because I was welding above me. Not very smart thing to do. Not very pleasant. Um, then I had to find a motorcycle for the engine and shocks, transmission, a few other things on this bike. What? On the go-kart. And instead of buying a working one, I bought one in just decent condition to save a lot of money and just figured I'd see if I could fix what little bits might be wrong on it. Then we went and checked out a scrapyard that sells them in fairly decent condition, some of them. And I had I asked Noah to come and check it out for me because he knows a lot more about motorcycles and engines and such than I do. So he came and checked out that it was in fairly decent condition. This is actually the engine from it. And then Noah came out and helped me disassemble it because I was completely lost on that. So I'm very grateful for his help there. Now, the financing of this project. I funded this project personally, completely out of pocket. So I do not yet have all the tubing I need, but for what I've spent so far on the tubing, it's come out to 850. Then there's the motorcycle, which this is the whole thing, came out to 780. And then as you can see with the rest of these, there's the welder, the welding wire, the tube bender and die, which for some reason the die, which is like a mold for the tube to bend around, is more expensive than the tube bender. Don't know why that is. Then miscellaneous things like just little angle cutter wheel, angle grinder wheels and such. And then there was the plans and the DXF cutting files for some brackets that I still have to get for this. Um, those will come later. So far, there has been a total sum of $228 if you don't subtract the amount that I got scammed out of for 400 to buy tubes. That's not fun. Learn not to just trust ratings on places from that. The plans. So these plans were very accurate plans down to the exact millimeter and angle you need to bend everything. And they had all the templates I needed for cutting the tubes. And they were very helpful throughout this. I think it was 166 pages or something in it. And there's the research that involved in parts and my um, paper, which my paper was on a soldier who served in the First World War, Second World War, and the Boer War, named Sir Adrian Carton de Weert, and one of the most scarred and decorated soldiers in history. And he said about his experience in the First World War, frankly, I enjoyed the war. So then I had to secure the tools I need, which you can see the tube bender that I finally went with right here in the box, and the other tools like the MIG welder, the 3 angle grinders, and such. The process. So first, I made a table because you put these as you can see, these wood template on the table so that you know you bent the tubes to semi-right spot. And I had a sheet of OBS wood lying around, so I used that as a base for the table because then I knew the corners were already square, so for knowing where to put all the templates. Then I made the lower layer, which you see on the top left. That's the base of this, and everything was built up from this. So that has to be obviously the most structurally sound part of this as well. And then I made the middle layer, which the engine and some other things will kind of attach to, and it'll support the roll cage and just the whole thing in general. You can see that one in the top right still in the template. Here's the process of combining them. This is a page from the plans. You can see kind of how precise it is down to the millimeter and the angle and everything. So thanks to this process, I knew exactly where things needed to be, and that was a huge help. The process. So from the combining, you can see I combined the 2 layers, and you can see on the um, back bit there, this is the engine area. So the engine will sit right here, and you'll have like the fuel tank and such right there. So I had to make the tubes for the parts for this out of the tubes. And then I made the roll cage going along here. And then we have the motorcycle here. This is after I took the plastic parts off it and such, and the fuel tank. So this is the motorcycle I bought. It's 200cc engine. It's a nice motorcycle for being an old scrap bike. So And you can see it all taken apart on the bottom page there, and the parts laid out as neatly as possible. So this page here is about the almost the page I'm on pretty much. So this is putting all the support bits at the bottom in that run along the bottom there you can see, and the kind of preparing for the roll or stabilizing the roll cage bit. So my community expert in this piece, in this project, was Noah Many. He's doing a senior project on engines and graciously agreed to be my community expert and help me with the motorcycle bit because, well, frankly, he knows a lot more about that part than me. And I'm very grateful for that. Then my community service bit of this project was helping students with math in the back room there. First of all, I learned I am very grateful for you teachers for putting up with us. I am not good with kids. Um, so I've already finished my math so at the beginning of this year. So I spend my mornings during math time helping other students with math. I generally was helping 3 or 4 at a time basically and jumping between them. And I don't like Alex, the program we use. It makes things overly complicated, so I tried to simplify their math for them as much as possible. And I hope that helped them because people simplifying it helped me a lot. So the parts that went well in this project was one, I had materials that I needed for it and had everything I needed. It was basically smooth sailing, just cutting the pieces and uh, fitting them and welding them. So it was pretty pretty smooth once we got to that bit. But the issues was supplies. Biggest part of it at the beginning was getting the wrong supplies or having to wait on supplies at the beginning. That delayed this project a lot. So the overcoming way to overcome that was simply returning wrong stuff and getting the correct stuff, and then working on my research paper while I was waiting for it to come. So it's a simple fix, but it's time consuming. So because of that, if I was to do this project again, the biggest thing I'd do differently would be to get everything from the get go. I would get all the tubing I needed, I'd get every tool I need. I would have it laid out as much as I can and planned, like, okay, I'm going to cut this piece and then this piece and then this piece instead of kind of going with it on the fly. Because if I did that, I could save a lot of time and not, I'd waste as little resources as possible, which would help save money. So if I was to do it again, I'd do that. The future of this go-kart. So the next thing I really need to do would be to build what these are called double A arms. And it combined with the quad bike suspension here and the motorcycle suspension here, they allow the tire to freely move. I think it was about 6 inches of travel up and down. So it allows you to have as smooth a ride as possible. Next would be a suspension, which would be acquiring the quad bike suspensions for the front two here, and then acquiring one more identical set to the set I already have of motorbike suspension, front suspension here, because I probably could use other ones from different motorbikes, but I want it to stay as even as possible so I know it'll work. Then there will be the drive shaft back here that goes right in between here. This will need to be made on a lathe and the things that go on it on a lathe. So I will have to work with someone to help make that because I don't have a lathe. So I'll work with someone on making that. And then the CV shaft, which goes here and basically turns the wheels. So I'm going to take those from a broken down vehicle we have at our house, along with the wheels I will take from that as well, and the hubs for the wheels. So that'll save a lot of time trying to acquire those. Um, I will get a steering system, which will go between the tires here and then up to the steering wheel here. I've looked into places that have those, and I would either get one go-kart steering from Amazon or Walmart. They have them kind of the best ones I can get. And the engine, which will go, like I said, right here, and the control is an electrical, which might very well be the most complicated part of this project. But as long as I kind of know where stuff should go and how it should go, it shouldn't take too much time. So this will be stuff I plan to do over the summer, this whole thing, and hopefully have it done by the end of it. After school, I plan to apply for the Dunwoody College of Technology, and I'm choosing this college for three main reasons. The first is so other colleges have either a welding course or a metal fabrication course, but these have a course that combines these two. And with that, I'll be able to get pretty much any career related to metalworking as long as I do good at the college. So that'll help expand my work field as much as possible so I can get a job that I won't get like burnt out on in 20, 30 years. The second reason is location. It's about 45 minutes from where I live. So I can stay at home whilst going there and save a lot on living expenses and food because I eat a lot. And the a third reason is I've heard good things from them from a welder I know over at Wingnut over there. He said he's heard good things about the Dunwoody College, so at least I know I'm not getting the short end of the stick there. A big thank you to one, my family for helping me acquire all the materials I need and go get them, and for when I start kind of burning out or procrastinating, telling me stop being a moron and get to work. Uh, a big thank you to Dakota. He really helped me get caught up, and he biggest thing he was getting me time I can work on this because this was actually made in my shop at home because there's not room for it in the shop here. So he got me time where I could work on it at home. Big thank you to senior team for kind of helping me with the ideas and the finer details and kind of giving me directions when I needed it. A huge thank you to Nicole for getting me started on kind of my here at um, MNCS after I recovered. A huge thank you to Noah for helping me with the motorcycle and also telling me stop being a moron when I needed it. A big thank you to Wingnut for giving me suggestions a few times throughout this project and agreeing to help me with some stuff down the line. Homemade Madness, who made the plans and I bought them from. And a huge thank you to Carrie and Credit Recovery team. They were a huge help in this. Any questions? Mhm. I'm pretty spontaneous on some things, so I just go with when I have an idea. I'm like, why not try this? And usually end up regretting it. Hmm. Hmm. Well, I live out in the country, so I don't have any like say a course to drive on here. So the only places I'd be driving it would be like field roads around me, maybe neighbors' fields before they plant or anything like that, and maybe our road. Mm, Maybe someplace like Lake Rebecca and their four-wheeler trails, or Lebanon. They have some four-wheeler trails up there that we've taken them for horse riding, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to drive it through there. So it's basically just a cutout of paper that I would tape onto the end of the tubes. Then I'd follow along that with an angle grinder and cut it out so I know, because with say like right here, it wraps around the tube here so that I have a flush weld and not like just filling in a bunch of area with welding. And I had to do that a few places when things didn't line up, but it helps a lot with flush welds and structural integrity. Oh, you, yeah. Hmm. Um, well, there are a few spots where, say, stuff just didn't line up. Probably, I think it was this weld, because I had to stick this off the end of the table and then weld under it, and that's where I lit myself on fire. So, and I actually was on fire. So that was Noah, who's had his hand up for a while and I've been ignoring. I'll put the engine in when I get to it, and I'm ignoring you because you're you. Logan, no. At least not for a long time. That was probably last year, I think it was. I made a welcome sign out of horseshoes that I welded together. And that's probably one of my favorite projects I've done so far. And that's kind of why I'm like, I really like welding stuff together. So, Dakota, 402 and a half. And it's not probably half done. Yes, 100%. Yes. I think I've got a list of people who said they're driving it once they are done. No. Maybe. No, but that's a good idea, and I will look into that. Yes. It will not be charged till after you two drive it. So it actually won't have like plates or anything on it. It'll be like this. That's how some cross carts do have plates, but some are just like this. And for powder coating it and like painting and such like that, that'll depend really on how like kind of done with it I am once I get to that point, because that'll be pretty much once everything's done. So that'll really depend on kind of how I'm at it then and if I'm burnt out. Cool. All right. We have snowmobiling helmets and safety gear. We'll see. Um, well, I think it'll have around 100 so horsepower. So it is a motorcycle engine, so maybe not quite as fast as motorcycle, but if we really got a good spot to do it, it might go probably 40, 50. They are used for racing and such, so Evelyn. So there will be a seat right here. Don't have a seat yet because there's no point in putting it in when it's not at that point. Yes. Hmm. That'll depend on really what difficulties come up, but I have honestly no clue. I know it's a bit embarrassing. The guy who originally made this, he's got a whole video series on making it, and he said that basically just a little more than this, like the whole frame, took him 40 hours. So, yes. Not particularly. I hopefully something that has kind of a variety of what you're working on. Maybe just kind of a repair shop or something that's got more of a variety of working on instead of the same thing over and over, but has not yet decided yet. Yes. Not really, no. The thing with running a business, there's a lot more, just as much paperwork to it as there is actual doing the business you created. So that's a huge deterrent for me.
We're going to get started here in another minute. Another minute. All right. Thanks again for coming, everybody. I'd like to introduce Zayn to you. So Zayn, I last year I had the opportunity to sit next to Nicole, and I got to witness many conversations that they had, and followed in the footsteps of a really great advisor. And I got to hear really great conversations, just sage advice. So appreciate that. One of the things about being an advisor here, I always think about like putting together every student's like a puzzle, and we got to take time to figure out how to put together that puzzle. And so it takes a while to get to know a student. So I was super excited to have you in my advisory this year. And then right away at first, I would sometimes get, not today, Jim. Whoa, what do I do with that? Um, and, as time went on, what I took that to mean is, Jim, the moment I can't tell you, but I need help. And so as we settled into that time, we started to kind of, things started figuring stuff out. And so then all of a sudden, I wasn't working with Zayn, I was working with Zayno. And you brought a ton to our advisory. First thing I want to say, they're a wise soul. And secondly, um, the amount of confidence that I saw grow in you this year was wonderful. And it really started peaking during that, when during the play, and just seeing that to the point where you were like ordering me around, which is fine. I need that. And lastly, I really appreciate you because you care deeply about this school and you care deeply about the people in it. Without further ado, Zayn Arias.
Oh,
Yeah, that's on.
Hi guys. Um uh I'm Zayn, as Jim so thankfully introduced, and this is my project on career exploration. So, for this project, I decided to explore two careers that I am very interested in. One being fashion school and the other being culinary school. I know those are two very different things. For the first thing that I did was I looked into different colleges that offer these programs, um, and I kind of went based off of vibe and vicinity for those. And like Jim said, I very much care about this school, so I wanted to use some of those skills that I have to give back to said school. Um, for my table of contents, the things I'll be talking about today are the culinary aspect of this project, the fashion part of this project, my community piece, my struggles and victories, and what I'm doing next. So, for the first part, I looked into different colleges that offer culinary related programs. And the first one that I figure I'll go to based on vibe and the fact that they do online school is the Culinary Institute of America. Um, my producible for this part was doing, I wanted to cook the lunches that we serve on the hot lunches that we serve on Tuesdays for the elementary and for the high school. And then I also ended up making the cold lunches that we serve throughout the rest of the week. And my big goal for this was to get my CFPM certification, which is Certified Food Protection Manager, which just means that I can be in charge of a commercial and certified kitchen if I wish. But I wanted that to go along with my food handlers certification. And I did that. I'm very happy that I did that. Um, Moving quickly on to the second part, which is the fashion part of this. I did the same thing where I looked into different colleges that offered fashion programs. The only change with this one was I ended up touring this school as college as well, and that was University of Wisconsin Stout. So if I choose to do um, fashion as my career, I will go here. They're pretty close in vicinity, and I liked the vibe when I toured it. Uh, my nope. So I mean, I picked this one. I know they're two completely different careers to explore, but I picked this one because fashion is very important to me, and it's really important how I present myself and the clothes that I wear. And sometimes the clothes on the market don't always offer that for me. So I take matters into my own hands and I tailor that, or I tailor them either to fit me or I tailor them so that they look how I want them to look. So that's very important to me. Here's some pieces in my personal closet. Here's a pair of pants that I turned into shorts. And for the producible, I made, I tailored the costumes for the play that we had earlier this year. Just jumping right into it. This one is a button up, and I've never actually tailored a button up before, nonetheless a shirt. So this was a great learning opportunity. And I've never had to work, I don't know if you can see, but these are pleats, and I've never had to work with pleating before because I don't need to at all. So this is a great learning opportunity for doing that. And also, little side note, all of the stuff that I've made is hand sewn because I just really like hand sewing. um, and then for the second thing, which is um, these are pretty completely from scratch. My friend had leftover elastic, which is this part, and then my other friend had some leftover sock garters, and I used the clips. Nope, some leftover um, suspenders, and I used the clips from that for the clips for the sock garters. And I did this purely based off of measurements. I just took measurements of the actor that would be wearing these, and I cut the elastic to size, and they came out great, honestly, which I was very impressed with. The next thing that I did, I've also never tailored a dress before, so I got to learn how to do that. The tailoring that I did was pretty simple. I just took in the sides. But the big road bump that I ran into was the fact that this one was tailored for, and as you can see, I have pins here, so I was going to take in the back, but I didn't, thankfully, because the actor that would be wearing this one dropped out of doing the play. So I had to take out all of my stitching and redo it, which it ended up being fine. But as you can see here, it's not as taken in all the way up to the sleeves. I don't know, it was great learning experience for sewing a dress. And I did the same thing here for this button up. I just took in the sides, and I kind of was worried that it wouldn't turn out as well as it did, but it turned out great. And I'm very happy that I got to do that. For most of my tailoring, though, because all of the costumes that we got were from the thrift store, which I got to go, it was very fun to go thrifting for costumes. Here's an example is I added snaps to this dress. And then for most of the tailoring that I did, I took in pants and I took them in, well, I also fixed buttons because some of the buttons were falling off on some of the clothes. But I fixed the waist on pants, which just means that I would take about half an inch to 2 inches and I would fold it flat into a pleat, which is this part right here. And I would either sew it at the back of the pants or I would sew it right at the pockets of the pants. And that is, I've found a really good way to tailor pants if they are too large, which was the case most of the time because it was from the thrift store. And I have a lot of experience doing this. I do this one all the time, and I have so much fun doing that. That leads me straight into my community piece, which was helping with the play. I could not help myself, and I wanted to help with as much as I could related to the play. So that included helping with the props, which was staining some of the boards for this one. This ended up being my favorite prop, actually, that I helped make, and that was made, and no, that I helped make. And I have never stained boards before because I've never had to. So I got to learn how to do that, and it was really fun. And then I also ended up painting the designs for two of the three big backdrops that we had, and the backdrops were like this big. So they were pretty time consuming to paint the designs for them. Here's what it looks like before, and then here's the final design. Like I said, those kind of took a while. um, and then another thing that I made was I made this using my sister's sketch, which was this. I made a prop syringe. It didn't need to be too big, but it needed to be big enough that the audience could see it. So on the day of the first, opening night, I made this completely from scratch. And if I had it with me right now, I would show you that this part, the plunger, actually like presses down, which I hope the audience saw. Uh, here's another photo with the backdrops in the background. But this was a photo of all the cast and crew on the last night of the show, and then there's me. So the challenges, and don't worry, I won't just talk about the bad things that happened. But the first challenge was doing this project in such a short amount of time. I started this project in January, which does not give me a lot of time to look into stuff and to also create and do a producible for each parts of these. So that was kind of an issue. And another time-related issue was I only had, 2 weeks to tailor all of the clothing that needed to be tailored, but to tailor all of the clothing by hand. And so that means I was working down to opening night of the first night, tailoring stuff. And another thing, I can't, technically it's secret, so I can't say a lot, but the CFPM certification test was a little bit of a struggle for me. Some of the questions that I had to answer were worded a little bit funny, so I wasn't totally confident in some of my answers. But onto the successes. I finished and I passed the test, which was really awesome, and that completes my goal for the culinary aspect of this project. And it's just really great to have that like knowledge and certification under my belt because that opens a lot of opportunities in the future. The fact that I finished all of the costumes for said play, it was super rewarding to not only see all the actors wear the clothing, um, and like the fact that they had clothing that fit them, but like the fact that I don't know, I have never tailored clothing that other people have worn before, so that was really rewarding to see. Like I said, the fact that it fit the people and that the costumes came out how they were supposed to, for the most part. Um, that was awesome. Doing this presentation. I don't do presentations like ever. So this is kind of terrifying for me. Walking at graduation. My big goal for this year was to walk at graduation, and after I'm done with this thing, I just need to do the walking part. So, what am I doing next? I'm graduating high school, getting out of here. I've been here for far too long. 12 years is too long. Then, no matter what, I'm gonna take a gap year. Like I said, have been here for 12 years, so that means a lot of years of working on projects, and that can burn a person out pretty bad. So I want to take time to rest, and I also want to take time to work and save money for whatever I have planned in the future. And then, if I so wish, I'm going to start college. It is for future me to decide which career I want to explore, but I will either go to the Culinary Institute of America for culinary arts and explore that career, or I will go to UW Stout and take the fashion careers. Nope, fashion. Oh my gosh, classes that they have, and do that as a career. Okay. I can't thank absolutely everyone, but I will kind of categorize it. Thank you to like all the friends that I've made and the communities that I've built. Or try not to cry. Thank you to all of the advisors that I've worked with that aren't my direct advisor or has not been my direct advisor. And thank you to all of the SPED teachers that I've worked with. They were honestly an incredible help to me and getting through all of this stuff. But some main people I'd like to thank are Liz and Dylan for letting me help with the play because I would not have a producible for my community piece or for the fashion part of this project. And also just for being my friend and supporting me over the years. And thank you to Evelyn for letting me help with the fashion part of like helping the helping me with the fashion, the producible for the fashion part of this project. Um, she honestly could have just said no and done all on her own, but she didn't. She let me help, which was very kind of her. Um, Thank you to Jim for stepping up and for being my advisor this year. It is. Um, I'm just very grateful. And thank you to Nicole, as I'm sure you've heard a few times before me. She was my advisor for 5 years. And I was very sad to see her go, but I'm very happy for her and all the new things she gets to experience with her new class. But I do really miss her, and I really wish I had her for this year. Um, she has helped me so much over these 5 years, and truly believed in me even when I didn't. I have more, but I don't really want to just turn into a puddle, so I'm not gonna say it all. Um, any questions? Well, yes, Adam. Mhm. Yes, yes. Yes. Um, Personally, which is why I picked actually serving and making the lunch for my producible part of the culinary aspect of this project. It I I didn't expect it to be as rewarding because I only got into cooking um like last year ish, but it is extremely rewarding to feed people and to provide food, especially with our brand new shiny kitchen that we worked so hard for. But it is truly amazing to provide students with food um, on the weekly. So that's really great. Yes, Liz. Um, what did I do? I used a piece of so it's all made out of cardboard. I used a piece of cardboard and then I had leftover elastic, like just like bracelet elastic, actually. And I just what did I do? Trying to think of what I did. I cut a circle for. Oh, I wish I had it with me right now. No, it's fine. I can scroll past back through all of this stuff to show you the photo. Okay. Um, Whatever. So this part right here is a full separate circle, and it has a hole in it so that this is a tube. So this part can go in. This is just like a stopper that's glued onto the end of this one, so this doesn't move. But for this one, I had a tube, and then I cut two notches right across from each other, and then I kind of just that's where the elastic sits. But I just made a loop of elastic in there, and it just kind of sits on there, and you can push it up and down. So yeah, yes, Evelyn. Yeah. Oh goodness. Um, I what would I do? I I would take more photos of stuff that I've made in my closet. Like these pants, for example. I tailored the waist for it, I added the paws, and I tailored the cuffs. That's a thing I commonly do is I tailor the waist for it and the cuffs for it. But I wish I had more photos of clothing that I made, but I unfortunately only tailored pants. Yes, Coco. I'm so glad you asked that. I am also extremely interested in oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Whoa, I cannot. Sorry. Um, I am also extremely interested in being a mortician, so I would really love to go to school for mortuary science. The only issue is that that is kind of hard to find a college that offers mortuary science and then go to a school specifically to be a mortician. That takes a lot of steps, and also it is like the same amount of time that it would take to be a doctor, and I don't really have that long of time, so I don't want to do that. But it is kind of a dream of mine that I probably won't ever pursue, but it's there. Colton, yes. um, Tater tot hot dish. No, happy hot dish, actually. Um, I freaking love hot dish, and it feeds so many people. We have leftovers for, I think, I don't want to say the rest of the week, but at least till Wednesday or Thursday, which is usually that never happens. So I love making hot dish for everyone, and it's also pretty much from scratch. Yes, Evelyn. Um, the Fridays, actually. I would not have gotten my certificate for food handlers if I didn't take a Friday for it, because that's what it started out with. Um, and along with Fridays, just all of the like opportunities that were offered, because I so graciously was offered to have my class paid for the CFPM certification, which is so I am incredibly lucky for that. um, I'm amazed that I got that. But also on a completely separate side of this school, the community. Um, I freaking love this community. It is so amazing, and it is just like in every shape of the manner, like making friends and friend groups, and having your communities, and having your advisories, and having just like the people you work with in the back, and just all of the different types of communities you can make. It's incredible, and it's freaking amazing.
All right, yeah, take a couple minute break. We'll get going here in just a few minutes. Again, we are live streaming this on our YouTube channel. You can get to our YouTube through our Facebook. So if you want to rewatch something or watch last night's performance, you can also do that.
green light's on. Jake's gonna get you here.
Hello? Okay, we're good.
We're gonna give you 30 seconds, get settled in, and we'll kickstart our last presentation. All right. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming. This is our second night of senior presentations. If you like what you see, we're going to do this again tomorrow night, and it's our grand finale. And so please join us. Starts at 5 o'clock, and we'd love to have you back. The other thing, I just wanted to speak to some of the underclassmen who are here. We've seen a lot of really great senior presentations so far, and you're up next. And so we're really looking forward to see what you come up with. I'm Paul Jagger. I've had the honor and privilege of working with Ashlynn Dhaene the last 4 years, and I've known the Dhaene family for a very long time. I recently learned a story about Ashlynn that I'd never heard before. We have a program here called Reading Buddies, and we pair older students in our community with younger students. And Aaron Grimm told me this story. And Ashlynn Dhaene, as a kindergartner, had a reading buddy who was a fourth grader who was not reading to her, at least not the way that Ashlynn expected. Ashlynn communicated that to her teacher, Aaron Grimm, and ended up getting a new reading buddy. I love that story about Ashlynn. I've been thinking about a saying, it's a Tibetan Buddhist proverb. It says, if the student is not better than the teacher, then the teacher has failed. And one of the issues we ran into when Ashlynn got to the high school is she was already better than most of us. And so we were trying to figure out how we could challenge her and keep this place interesting. And without telling her, we just kind of brought her on as a staff person, and we never paid her any money or told her that. And she's been running our school library. She's been planning experience weeks with Shane Sheets. Shout out to you back there. And she's been a peer mentor, and she's always the first person who volunteers to help whenever we need it. And it's just, I'm blown away by how much you've done for this community. And it's very much in the spirit of how the Dhaenes are as a family, as neighbors and people in this community. You have a really special way of making family everywhere you go and being a good neighbor everywhere you go. And the hard part about having good neighbors is that it's really hard when they leave. But Henderson is your home. And one of the cool things is no matter where you go, you can always come back to the home you have here. I'm so proud of you, Ashlynn Dhaene. I'm so excited about the chapter you're about to start writing. And I'm really excited to hear your senior presentation. Give it up for Ashlynn Dhaene. Excellent.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out to support me as I give my final presentation here at MNCS. I'd like to start off tonight's final presentation with a story. Now, I've been coming to Minnesota New Country School for these past 12 years, and I am one of the original elementary students. So that's quite a while I've been here, as Paul was saying. My first time down to the high school, I remember being in awe of this building, and I couldn't wait to start learning here someday. The thing that inspired me the most were the senior quotes you see hanging on the walls around you. I spent about 10 minutes standing there reading them all, taking all the words in, and hoping that someday I could see my senior quote hanging on the wall. After all these years, there's one quote that has stuck with me, which is from the class of 2009, and it's "Don't dream your life, live your dream." These words have stuck with me throughout my entire time here and were a driving force in this, which is my senior presentation, my year as an ambassador. Now, this is just a little overview of the many subjects I will be covering, as I had to do a lot of different things in order to complete my hours for this project. And first up is my ambassadorship. In 2014, my older sister Cheyenne was selected as one of 4 of the Henderson Royal Ambassadors. Me, being about 5 at the time, thought this was awesome that my sister was a princess and she had a tiara and she got to be in the parades and wave. I wanted to go with her to all of her events, and I did. I fell in love with the idea of ambassador programs, and I saw how beneficial they were to my sister, and I couldn't wait to run for Miss Henderson someday. Sadly, though, this was not meant to be because my sister was the very last year. However, 2 years ago, the event committees for Sauerkraut and Giant Days held a meeting, and it was in this meeting where they decided to revitalize both their royalty programs as a joint effort, which created the Lisa Henderson Royal Ambassador Program as we know it today. Last summer, I finally made up my mind and decided to put in an application to become a candidate. And on June 29th, 2025, I was selected and crowned the 2025-2026 Lisa Henderson Princess. This project is the story of my year. Now, in this slide, you can see just a small example of the number of events I got to attend this year with my crowned sister Kendra. Of course, we went to such lovely local events as Montgomery Kolachki Days, Gaylord Extravaganza, and Jordan Fest. However, we also got to attend bigger events such as Defeat of Jesse James Days in Northfield and the Anoka Halloween Parade, of course, in Anoka, Minnesota. However, the biggest event we had the privilege to attend this year was the St. Paul Winter Carnival, which celebrated 140 years of winter magic this year, and it was so much fun to be a part of. Being an ambassador, I also got to take part in unique cultural events, 2 of which, Svatny Mikuláš and Masopust, both of which are Czech celebrations held in winter, and I had the distinct honor of being a part of this year's Makato Wachipi, and you can see me going out for grand entry with the other royalty and dancers. This was such a privilege to be a part of, and I'm so happy I've got that opportunity. Now, looking at these photos, you may be thinking, how many events could a girl like me from a town of less than 1,000 people actually go to in 1 year? Well, don't worry, I did the math. And as of tonight, I have attended 40 events during both my candidacy and my active reign. Now, on the pie chart, you see all these different colors. So the lighter green are parades, and I attended 14 parades, 11 coronations, 13 non-specific town events, and I planned and participated in 3 fundraisers. By the end of my year, I estimate I will be close to 50 events, although it may be closer to 45 because you never really know with planning. The first item I'll be passing around tonight is my pin pillow. This is a tradition a lot of local royalty have to show the people they've met and the events they attended. As you can see, mine is now double-sided. So this is the best possible way I can show just the multitude of events I got to attend. Paige, would you like to be the first? Just pass it around. I wasn't expecting Paul to make me cry right away, guys. This is... My next section is working with death. Now that's quite a jump, isn't it? You know, talking about pageantry and tiaras and waving and smiling all day to forensic science and working with dead people. To me, this is a pretty standard switch in everyday life. I set myself with the goal of becoming a forensic pathologist by the time I'm done with my secondary education. And this year, I knew I wanted to look even further into the field of forensics. And my first step this year was attending the IACME conference. The IACME stands for the International Association for Coroners and Medical Examiners. It's quite a long name, so an acronym really helps. I found out about this conference because of my mentor, Shane Sheets, who gave me the link in order to submit an application. It was an extremely rigorous process, and I had to draft my first resume ever, and I also had to get a couple different letters of recommendation. However, I was one of 15 interns at this year's inaugural conference. As interns, we had many different jobs. My group was charged with running the registration table, while another group was in charge of the merchandise. And out of this year's 20 presentations held, I was able to attend 12 of them, and they were all extremely informative. Being that this is an international organization, I was rubbing elbows with some of the most important people in the field of forensics. Just to name a few are Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. If that name is at all familiar to any of you, for one, I applaud you. But secondly, he was the doctor who identified the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer. But I also met people like Anne Christopher, Colleen Hancock, and Raylene Ruiz. Here's a photo from the first night of conference, and you can see me sitting at the middle table working registration. This year's conference was held at the Radisson Blu at the Mall of America, so if you want, you can visit the hallway where I had to sit for 4 hours one night. Next, all the conference attendees got a lanyard, and you can actually see mine on the table right there. But us interns also got special purple polos that signified our position, and we got to keep them, so that was really nice. Next, here's a photo of all of us interns, and the woman standing above me is actually my future college professor, Dr. Megan Foley. This was my first time meeting Dr. Foley in person, and I look forward to working with her in the future. And finally, here's a picture of me with my mentor, Shane, whom I should mention is the president of the IACME this year, the director of Midwest Medical Examiner's Office, and is the mayor of Green Isle. He does a lot. I don't know how he does it. Wanting to keep this passion for forensics going, I decided to plan an experience week. Since when I first started getting into forensics, I didn't have a lot of resources that I could look to. So I wanted to be that person for fellow students. I planned this experience week with the help of Dakota Palmer, Nurse Jen, and Ashley Poplar, and we were able to visit Shane's office for 2 days, which was incredible, and I'm so happy we got that opportunity. Shane gave a presentation on what they do at his facility, and we also had a special guest presenter from the National Tissue Donation Bank. As for the students, they had to complete a worksheet by the end of the 3 days, and in these worksheets, they were able to use their problem solving skills and also learn new information about forensic terminology. I'm incredibly proud of their final assignment, which was solving the unexplained death of patient X. It was so much fun getting to listen to these kids argue and debate with each other when they all came up with the same answer. If you're curious, it was a stroke. Here's Dakota showing you how not to hold a baby. The little orange sandbag looking thing he's holding are called Sudi dolls, and in Shane's office, they're used for photography purposes. Next, here's excuse me. Next, here's a photo of me and Shane during our final day at his office. Here's Nurse Jen. One thing I should mention is I planned an experience to Shane's office for my sophomore project. Nurse Jen was one of the staff members who jumped at the opportunity to visit. And when I mentioned to her that I wanted to tour it again, she practically begged me to take her. And I'm happy that she was able to come with for this as well. And finally, here's our students hard at work. The day after this, we got a complete tour of Shane's facility, which is super cool, and I really hope to work there someday. And finally, here's our group picture outside, and Dakota has to steal all the attention. And next is preparing for my future. Well, I already know what I want to do with my life, and I know that requires a lot of schooling, specifically 13 years. And yes, I will be a doctor by the end of everything. If I didn't have a doctorate, I'd be really concerned why I spent 13 years of school and I'm probably in debt. I kicked around a couple different schools to attend, one of which being NDSU Go Bisons, as that was my brother and sister-in-law's alma mater. While it is a nice school, it didn't have exactly everything I was looking for. And also dealing with Fargo's weather when my brother was up there was less than desirable. After talking with some friends and family, I discovered Hamlin University. At first, I was kind of iffy, since I've never really heard about Hamlin before, especially in my area when kids usually go into nursing or something agricultural based. But after attending a national college fair and unknowingly meeting my wonderful admissions counselor, Sophie, I fell in love with Hamlin. It's the oldest university in the state of Minnesota. It's right in St. Paul, but you don't feel like you're in the cities. And most importantly, they have the only forensic science degree in the state of Minnesota. I immediately submitted my application and I was accepted on November 3rd and I officially enrolled on April 5th. The photo I've included on this slide is of my parents and I during our first trip to campus, standing in front of Old Main, which is the second oldest building on campus. And knowing I had to keep myself busier than I probably should have been, I also planned an experience day or experience Friday, which just so happened to be the same week that the conference was. So I really only had that one Thursday of downtime. But I planned this Friday with my advisor Paul because I wanted to share my love of my heritage with my classmates. On my mom's side, my family originates from the Czech Republic. And in St. Paul, there's something called the Sokol Minnesota Hall, also known as CSPS. This is the hub for Czech, Slovakian, and Moravian immigration in Minnesota. I was able to work with their educational director to plan a wonderful Friday where we got to learn the rich history of the West 7th District of St. Paul, as well as the history of the Sokol building itself. My favorite thing we got to do on this experience, however, was learn from Sokol's Czech dancers. They gave a presentation on their traditional costumes, which are called kroj, and we got to participate in 2 traditional dances. It was so much fun, and I even made Paul go out and dance, even though he really didn't want to. Another perk of being at the hall is we got fresh baked kolačkis from a woman visiting from the Czech Republic. If there's one thing you need to know about Czech culture is that the food is really good, especially the pastries. Next, here's a photo of us performing one of the traditional dances. I'm so happy that my friend Sally took a picture of us during this dance and not the second because I don't think I'm very good at that one, and I kind of shuffle my feet. Here's some of the students learning from 2 of Sokol's most esteemed historians on the history of the building. And finally, this is me with Louise. Louise is the director of all 3 of Sokol's dance troupes, and her traditional costume that she's wearing is similar to the region where my family is from. Finally, my favorite section of this project, my producibles. I'd like to start this section off by talking a little bit about what I struggled with. And first up is time management. Between being a senior in high school and having an active royalty title, I was extremely busy all the time. There were times where I was choosing between royalty events and life events, and I never felt like I quite got that balance down until now. I also got a job in the middle of all this, so it was really hard trying to plan around that. And next is saying no. I've been told and I find myself to be quite the people pleaser, so it is really hard for me to say no to people. And I set myself out with the goal this year to attend as many events as I possibly could, and I definitely succeeded in that goal, so I'm not at all mad about that. And finally is self-doubt. This has been a lifelong struggle for me, and it just so happened to mess with every aspect of this project, and there were times where I felt like certain things were just going to inevitably fail. But thankfully they didn't, and I was able to power through these struggles and create a project I'm so proud of. At MNCS, we were required to make a certain number of producibles for each project. One of those is a research paper. This paper was a true labor of love, and it took me 4.5 months to write because I kept hitting writer's block. I was originally just going to scrap this paper and come up with something new, but after interviewing with my grandparents, which was the heart and the main reason why I wanted to do this paper, I fell in love with it again, and I was able to finish it in a timely manner. This year, my research paper is titled Leaving a Legacy, a retrospective on the history of Henderson and the Dhaene family. One of the main points I talk about in this paper is the founder of Henderson, Joseph Renshaw Brown, as well as the first 100 years after the town's founding, and most importantly, what part my family had to play in it. Fun fact, the Dhaenes, the Aylers, the Oldenburgs, the Jenses with both an S and a Z, whoever, have been in Henderson for at least 7 generations, which is truly impressive. One of the most unique traditions I got to document in this paper was the use of nicknames in Henderson's history. It's a tradition I haven't found anywhere else, and it was so wonderful to get to document that. Nicknames in Henderson are just as common as first and last names, and they often replace first names. If you remember in Brody's presentation, he talked about a man called Wingnut. Yeah, a nickname can really be anything. But the photographs I've included on this slide from top to bottom are my great-grandparents, Loretta and Lloyd Ehlers, my grandparents, Pat and Pam Dhaene, and finally, a family photo of my mom, dad, aunt, uncle, cousins, grandparents, myself, and my great-grandmother Felicia, who sadly passed away 2 weeks ago, so it is especially meaningful for me to include her in this. And finally, I'm so excited to present to you all tonight my final creation for this project, the Henderson quilt. This has been an idea I've had for a couple years now, inspired by my first time going up in an airplane. As I was looking out at the ground, I noticed that the roads seemed to form a grid almost, reminding me a lot of an earlier quilt I had made. Other way around. Dad, you're holding the bottom. Other way, other way, other way, other way. As you can tell, we've had no practice, so. So I had to learn many new skills when it came to making this quilt, some of which I expected to have to learn, such as applique, and other things I had no clue I would need to learn how to do, such as use geometric gridding software, which absolutely sucks, and I didn't even end up using any of the skills I learned when I made this. All right, if you guys want, you can set it down. Thank you. My first step in making this quilt was sketching out my design. This is the original piece of paper that my design was sketched on, and in comparison to the actual quilt, it's quite small and you almost can't even see the vision that I had behind it. My first plan for this project was to make a unique block design for every single of the 42 blocks on this quilt, and I failed many, many, many times at this. Okay, well, back to square one. Then picked 3 different designs I planned on using for the entirety of the quilt. So I got started on those, and the more I looked at them, I didn't really like that idea either, which led me to my final design, which, after looking at these 4 blocks, I really liked the randomized sporadic look of all of these different designs put together, which my final design ended up making every single block a different pattern. This way, I feel I can show the true mosaic that is the people of Henderson and how we all tie together. I also had to learn many new cutting techniques and skills, and there were a lot of blocks I really struggled on, and there were some that turned out beautifully. And this also meant that my parents didn't have a living room floor for 2 months. But once I was done, I had a topper that looked just gorgeous on its own, but it wasn't quite done yet, which led me to even more pattern designing. Yay! This time, however, it was a completely different style that I kind of made up on the fly, which involved me pinning paper to my carpet and then drawing a grid over that and transferring all of my designs onto there, and then eventually cutting out the pieces as you see here. And now you can really start to see the vision for this quilt. After that step was complete, I had to begin applique. Applique is really nice once you know how to do it, but it is a very fickle medium. And eventually, after a lot of trial and error, I was able to get the river sewn on, and the blue pops beautifully, and it looks just like water. And my mom got this beautiful picture of me holding it up. The next step was actually making the town of Henderson. Henderson is now my least favorite shape. The entirety of Henderson on this quilt is one piece of fabric. The two little squiggles on the side that are Highway 19 had to be cut off and added separately because they just didn't fit. But you can see me for scale and see how truly monstrous this piece of paper was that became Henderson. But eventually, I was able to get it sewn on and it looked great. And I was working from home a lot on this quilt, and my dog was there for moral support. My next step after the applique was done was to get my quilt long armed. I reached out to my former community expert and dear friend Sandy Canary to do the long arming for me. If you're unfamiliar with quilting, long arming is one of the final steps to finishing a quilt, and it's made up of intricate stitching that sandwiches the topper, backing, and batting together. At her house, I also attached the border and got started on the binding, and we decided on this beautiful open floral design that would showcase my piecing more so than my actual quilting. The final step in any quilt is the binding. Unlike some people, I actually really enjoy it. However, this time I was on my very last needle and I was worried that it was going to break the entire time, and my machine was making some really scary noises that I've never heard it make before. But thankfully, I got it done without breaking a needle, and my quilt was done, or so I thought. My final step to making this quilt was adding a hand sewn patch on the back that includes my name, how long it took me to make this quilt, and the title. And to wrap up this presentation, I'd just like to talk a little bit about what I have planned for the future. My reign as Lisa Henderson Princess concludes on June 28th of this year, and I will be starting at Hamlin University in September. During my time at Hamlin, I have plans to run for both Miss Sibley County and Miss Czechoslovak, Minnesota, opportunities I feel I never would have gotten if it weren't for my year as an ambassador. As for the fate of the Henderson quilt, I have hopes to donate it to the Sibley County Historical Society, so that way I know some small piece of me will be in Henderson forever. As I finish my final presentation here at MNCS, I hope I've done all I can to make this school proud. This place has truly left an impact on me, and I feel I would not be the person I am if it weren't for this school. And I hope that someday a student like myself can feel just as inspired as I was seeing my own quote on the wall. I have some very special thank yous I would like to say tonight. First up are my friends, Tori, Maisie, Anna, and Elijah, for always being there for me and making me smile and commenting on my posture when I made this presentation. Next, I'd like to thank my mentor Shane, Dr. A. Quinn Piper, and everyone at the Midwest Medical Examiner's Office and the IACME. I'd also like to thank Sally Lieberman, Marie Kuchera, Sandy Prohaska, and all of the Sokol, Minnesota members that came out to support um, me teaching my students about Czech history. Next, I'd like to thank my Crown Sisters and Royal Coordinators, both here and unable to attend tonight, for all of their unwavering compassion. Could I just get a little wave from all of my coordinators and royalty members I got here? Avon, that means you too. So, thank you guys so much for all that you do, and I've truly found such lasting friendships with you and all of the girls that you take care of. Next, I'd like to thank Sandy Canary for just being a great friend and always agreeing to help me with my quilting. Next, I'd like to thank senior team, Jake, Nick, Diane, and Paul. Thank you for letting me do this project, even though during my pitch I really had to explain what an ambassador was and why this would be a 300-hour project. Next, I'd like to thank my grandpa Pat, my grandma Pam, and my aunt Kim for all of their information, not just for my paper, but also for life. This is something that Paul asked me to include, but it's for my dog. Whenever I'd work from home, Paul would always ask me to send pictures of him. So he made it in the presentation. There's one man here tonight who I didn't know was coming originally, but I'd like to thank him anyways. Aaron, I have one thing to say to you, and that's I'm here to learn. Paul, you've truly been the best advisor that I could ever ask for. I value you so much as a person, not just an advisor, but as a true friend. I've learned so much from you in our time together, and I will value that for the rest of my life. And I hope you know that I don't just see you as an advisor anymore. I see you almost as a second father. And finally, I'd like to thank my parents, Paul and Dan. I can't even put into words everything I can thank you for. During this project, you believed in me even when I didn't. I can hardly thank you guys for everything you've done for me, but I can put it into 4 simple words. Thank you for everything. Thank you all for being here tonight as I conclude my final presentation. Any questions? Yes, Zayn. Actually, yes, I have about like 5 commissions that are coming after this, including baby blankets for my nieces and also a giant enormous quilt for my parents' bed. Jim. It sounds really weird. Um, but if you go off of Highway 19 directly this way, there's a little grove in the woods. And during the summer and fall, it's absolutely beautiful. And I have a lot of good memories having advisory sessions out there. And it's truly beautiful. Anna? Yes. My friend Maisie ever so lovingly refers to it as a shrimp posture. And it's basically where you're hunched over your desk like this. And was doing that quite a lot since this was a new presentation program I was using. So it was very finite and I had to do a lot of tweaking. Evelyn. I spent about 125 hours into the quilt, and one detail I would love to point out to you tonight, and I encourage you to come up and check out my table of stuff I have here, and I'd be willing to explain anything. And if you didn't get a chance to look at my pin pillow or anything else, please feel free to come up. But one detail I want to point out on my quilt is the small red heart towards the bottom. That's actually my house. I machine appliqued. I wanted hours, but I didn't want that many hours. Yes. So the first quilt I made was for my junior project, and it was actually a gift from my grandfather. On his quilt, since I used Crown Royal bags as my fabric, the design itself was Crown Royal bottles, and the stitching was really dense. And on that quilt, the focus was more so on the quilting stitching rather than my piecing. And this quilt, I knew I wanted to do the opposite. And Sandy actually helped me pick out this design, and I wanted something naturey and flowy, but not like leaves or trees. So I wanted something kind of abstract and something that would blend in. Yes. Um, I have been incredibly tempted to join the Henderson Lions, and I've also been asked to join the United Fund program. I think they're honestly just my mom's just trying to recruit me. Um, but I also see that being extremely beneficial during my college life. I have looked into joining their student council, and I also have the opportunity to plan my own clubs at Hamlet. So there's a lot of things that being an ambassador has really impacted my life. I wasn't always this outgoing, and I was quite shy in public, but getting this opportunity, I was able to, reconnect with that younger self that was so outgoing. Dakota. Take every opportunity that you have, and if there isn't one that you're willing to take, make it yourself. This school is really for the students that want to better themselves and that really want to learn everything they can. And I definitely have made the most of my time here. And for any students that come after me, I hope they do the same. And in a more joking sense, but actually, guys, do your time logs. Yes, Evelyn. Um, so during this project, I did a lot of like introspection and all of this stuff. If you don't know, I traveled to school with like two different bags. So a lot of the stuff was in my secondary bag. And throughout every step of this year, I've really had time to reflect on how much I've grown. Um, One of those moments was putting the final pin that I have on my pin pillow and just seeing how many people I've met. Another moment was reading through my gigantic book of notes that I got after the conference and also flipping through all of the business and contact cards I got as well. But I was definitely extremely proud the moment I pinned that little red heart onto my topper because I knew that I was one step closer to presenting tonight. Um, it's probably around 150. Um, an example of two of my longest events are actually the Winter Carnival and Jesse James Days. Jesse James was a full 13-hour day. I was there from 7 to almost 9. And then the Winter Carnival was actually a full weekend, so I was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we didn't go to bed until 1 in the morning most nights. And my roommate and myself actually stayed up until 3 in the morning the final night. So long days, but it was worth it.